Tammy Moxon is an artist in Queensland who released her debut album Fall in Time in 2016 and then Drive Me Sane in 2019. She intended to go back to the studio in 2020, but of course, all those sorts of plans were derailed. But it was worth waiting for her new single, Fighting Chance, with the promise of more songs to come. So we're going to talk about the single, maybe a bit about the album, the last album. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I am going to get right into Fighting Chance, though, and I understand that it started life on a sunset cruise from Magnetic Island to Townsville, but you were not a passenger on the cruise.
No, I was working. I was the serenader, I guess you can call it. I was on the top deck with like a busking amp and my guitar, and I'd sing to the passengers going to and from Townsville and Maggie Island, and that was about 4 or 6 trips or something like that. And the last trip, usually it was on a Friday, and the last trip back to Townsville usually had no one on it because no one really wanted to go to Townsville for the weekend when you're on Maggie Island already. So I would just sit on the passenger seat and just play on the guitar. So it looked like I was playing because I might as well. I was getting paid for it, and just play on the guitar until I found a melody. That's how the melody came about. The lyrics didn't come about till a year later, but yeah, that was a nice way to write a melody, is cruising on a barge.
I'm curious when you're singing in an environment like that, because it's not just an outdoor gig, it's a moving outdoor gig on a boat, and you've got the sea and the sea air around you. Do you have to, or are the things that can happen to your voice if there's too much salt in the air, that sort of thing? Do you have to learn to adapt to those conditions?
Seasickness, yeah.
Oh, no.
I do get sick. Oh wow, I'm saying this on here. I have a few times, yep. But the staff were very lovely about it, and they said, don't worry, we get seasick too. But it was just finding a way to sit down. I ended up finding a way to be able to sing and not feel sick. And that was, I had to sit down kind of like in a stool, kind of like this high up, like the height of a stool, find something the height of the stool, sit on that, have one leg on the guitar case, one leg on the floor, and then I could kind of steady myself then. It was kind of like when you're I guess you're drunk and you need your foot on the floor when you're in bed to stop the room from spinning. So that helped, and I found my little, and I was good then. I was a pro at singing on a boat.
Well, because I imagine seasickness would really affect your ability to finish a set. It's very unpleasant when it happens. Yeah.
It's not nice. Oh. Sorry, I can't believe I brought this up.
Well, I asked you about the conditions. Like, you didn't bring it up. I totally got it out of you. Did it happen the first time you played, or did it take certain conditions to get seasick?
The top deck wasn't so bad. Like, I did kind of get a bit ill, like nauseous, but it wasn't. It was when I was on the actual bottom deck where the cars are. They got me there.
You couldn't see anything, right?
Half of that gig was not performing.
But see, these are gigs that some people may not realize musicians do, and it's you have to do in order to deliver music to the people.
Exactly. And a gig's a gig, and if they're paying the right money, you do it, I guess.
Was it the sort of gig where people would request songs?
Oh yeah, I'd allow requests. That's pretty much my whole set, is people requesting. I generally don't have a set list because I'd rather the crowd tell me what they want to hear. It's a bit different at a festival because it's a bigger crowd. You can't really it's not, you can't really connect with them, face to face. They're kind of, it's a bit, they're a bit further away. So that's, a set list kind of gig. But when I'm doing, clubs and pubs, more intimate gigs, it's a very request heavy set. And usually I have I usually have like a QR code for people to scan. This is like a QR code. This is hangover from COVID, when people, because I live in Queensland, so for a long time people couldn't be within, I think it was like 3 or 4 meters of us.
Right.
So so I had a QR code for people to scan, so they knew every single song I knew, and they just submit the songs. I get them in my emails on my iPad on stage. And I still have that. People still know about it. So every now and then when I'm on stage, I get emails saying, can you sing this? Can you sing that? And that also has my songs on there too. So people do request my songs, which is nice.
How big's your repertoire?
It'd be over 800 songs, I'd say.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm trying for 1,000, but last count it was 700, and I'm pretty sure I've put a lot more on there since then. That was probably a year ago I last counted. So yeah, it's definitely growing. And the good thing is, people down the bottom, I get people to tell me what I need to learn, and people aren't afraid to tell me what I need to learn. So that helps me know what I'm going to learn next, especially when there's abundance of people, telling me what to learn, especially if it's a Luke Combs song.
Yep. Oh, right. Okay.
Morgan Wallen song. Yep. They're very popular. Yeah, it's interesting to see what people like, and in different area like postcodes or, towns or whatever. Everyone's different. It's very eclectic, like Early Beaches are very, they're more of a reggae kind of town. And then you go to Townsville, which is more like a country town, like country music town. And you go inland, and they like their Australian country as well. It's very interesting to see what people want to hear, and you try and learn as much as you can just to kind of please everybody. Let them have a good time. Yeah.
That is such amazing cultural insight into how different towns and what's popular, because the sort of thing that only someone in your position would pick up, unless it's the radio station's programming in a certain way, I guess. But that is fascinating. I could probably talk to you about this for an hour, but I will get to your music, because we are talking about your music, and I'm going to bring us back to Fighting Chance and ask you, what is the song about?
Fighting Chance is, the lyrics were written in those first couple of weeks of COVID, the shutdown. So there was a lot going on online, because people couldn't really talk to each other face to face. So there was a bit going on. We didn't really know what was going on in the industry, and people were questioning whether our industry needed help, and they were saying we weren't essential, and there was a lot of nasty things being said. And there was a few musicians saying, well, excuse me, we do pay tax, like we we do give back. So it was a scary time. We were kind of under a lot of scrutiny, our industry, and also we were under a lot of pressure, because we're thinking, how are we going to, because I'm a full-time musician, so I'm thinking, how am I going to pay the rent? It was a scary time. It was pretty much trying to tell people not to turn on each other online, because we didn't know what was going on. The last thing we needed to do was turn on each other. But that was the chorus, in Isolation. That was written first, and then the verses came along, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of done singing about that. I'll just make it a love song. So I kind of changed course there. But originally it was something serious, I thought. And then it just turned into a love song. But you can apply it to any relationship, I guess.
That's true. And love songs are serious as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So apply it to anything, really. Just don't hold a grudge. Get it out in the open and talk about it and move on. That's my dog. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. I always love having dogs on the podcast, because dogs are great. But you mentioned that you wrote the melody on the boat, and then the lyrics came quite a bit later. Is that often the way you write songs, that the parts are separate and you'll bring them together at a certain point in time? Do you usually write music first, lyrics first? Or is there no set pattern to it?
I did in the beginning. The melody came first and then the lyrics, and that was I didn't like that way of writing. Like, there's still melodies I've written from when I was 16 that I haven't put lyrics to. And I don't want to say how old I am now, but that was a while ago. So I don't like that way of writing, because the melodies are I think they're really catchy. And I feel like there's no lyrics that make sense that kind of fit with it, like that make me happy. And yeah, Fighting Chance was unfortunately one of those songs. But when I went to like the Academy of Country Music and I saw how other people were writing, they kind of write around a hook. So they kind of have the melody of the hook and the hook itself, like the, you know, the title of the song, they kind of write around that, it spirals around that. That was an easier way of writing. I was more productive writing that way. And I try to write that way if I can help it. But unfortunately, Fighting Chance was just one of those. Luckily, it only took a year. Like, it's not like, you know, all these other songs that I've written melodies and I haven't, you know, put lyrics to. So, yeah, I guess Fighting Chance was one of the lucky ones.
Well, maybe you could go, now you've been to the Academy, you could go to the Dag Sheep Station and take your melodies with you and then pull a name out of that and find someone to write lyrics with.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I should get someone just to, put lyrics to them because, it's been too long. I should have done it by now.
But look, it's so great to have that bank of stuff there to draw on, and rather than the well being dry, I guess.
Well, one of the songs on the album is actually a song I wrote when I was 17. It was right after my first breakup, and I finally wrote that thing. Like, it was loose and everything. It wasn't really cemented. Does that make sense? It wasn't, I wasn't happy with it. It wasn't finished. And I finally finished. After I got a call from Shane saying, you're recording in a couple of months, hurry up and have some songs ready.
So that's the previous album you mean, or?
No, this album. Yeah. So the album's pretty much recorded. It's just, just slowly introducing the audience to, the songs. Try and give it as much life as I can. Well,
you recorded Fighting Chance with Shane Nicholson, as you mentioned, and he was your producer for Drive Me Sane as well. And I thought that Drive Me Sane had this lovely clean sound where your voice and the lyrics were at the forefront. But it also meant that the heartbreaking songs are more heartbreaking because you're right there telling us about them. And I wanted to ask in particular about Can't I Fall For You, which to me is the most devastating song on that album in a beautiful way. It's such a great song, but I'm wondering what the story is behind it.
That song was written about someone. It was an ex, and he was very kind and he was very loving, and I couldn't give back. And I was like, why can't I fall for you? Because you can deal with my crazy, you can deal with my pain, and you know how to harm me. Why can't I fall for you the way you love me? And it was a bit of a nasty song, but I didn't mean it to be nasty, but it was just a plea. Why do I have to and why do I have to pass this? It was a really, it was a hard time, and I felt like a horrible person at the time, and it was just, I guess, a way of getting those feelings out, trying to get over that. Why couldn't I do it?
Yeah, I actually didn't think it was nasty at all. I thought it was really, it was truly expressing regret that this set of circumstances are coming around. It wasn't like you were saying, I don't care about you. It was actually, I wish with my whole heart that I could give you my whole heart, but I cannot.
It was kind of a sorry song as well. It was, I guess, me explaining myself. So it was a sorry song, and I think the person will know who it's about when they hear it. But it's it was a sorry song to pretty much explain where I was at.
Yeah.
And but they're happy, they're married now, so it was for the best.
Well, it's a great song. In fact, there are many great songs on the album, which is a document, I think, of life and family and love for home and family. And I'm wondering if when you set out to write it, you had an idea in mind of you want to tell this story about your life and the people you care about, or whether that was just the way it came about once it was recorded.
The Drive Me Sane.
Yes, Drive Me Sane. Yeah.
It was Drive Me Sane was pretty much a therapy session. Like all those songs were therapy sessions. Because it was a time in my life where I was questioning, my self-worth. It was a bad time. And if you listen to you've listened to my lyrics, like that's amazing. Like that means a lot. Listening to it, you can probably tell I wasn't in a good place. But it was me trying to find light in a bad situation, you know what I mean? Like trying to get everything off my chest and find the good in everything. It was definitely a therapy session, and I was glad I got that out of my system, because once I did, like every time I sing those songs, like especially songs like Survive, like I'm panting by the end of it, because those songs are very they were written at times where I didn't know where I was going to be the next day. I was not in a good place. Let's just, if you can read between the lines. So like singing some of those songs are still hard. I sang Survive at the gig at Tropic Fiesta a couple of weeks ago, and I was tearing up because it was a big crowd, and the crowd was my home my hometown, and they knew what was going on. They knew the song, and they was kind of singing with me, so that was lovely. And just having that come back at you, and then those emotions just overwhelm you. It was different, but is that answering your question? Sorry.
Yeah, it is. I'm also interested that because you as discussed, you have a big repertoire of songs. Some of them aren't yours, but you also have 2 albums behind you, and you've recorded an album that's coming. So you could choose to not sing a song like Survive. But obviously for you, there is something significant about continuing to perform it, even if it causes you pain.
Yeah, well, I feel like because at the beginning I say, if these words relate to you, please get help or continue getting help, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's life, and I'm living proof of that. So it's pretty much me saying, I'm living proof that, you can get through this. And I'm hoping other people listening to the song will get that message as well. Yeah.
And do you think that your art that you create has played a part in helping you to survive, that it was actually in having an outlet? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, that song saved my life. Like, absolutely. Like I was writing things down because I didn't know if I'd make it through the night. So that's why that song's so full on for me. But absolutely. And like Dolly Parton says, she doesn't need, to pay for a therapist because she's got a songwriting. And it is true, like, Dolly's Dolly, but, it is true. It does help. It does. And even if you just write it down, just get it out of your system, because once, I guess it's kind of like, prayer, when you put it into the hands of someone, release that, you know what I mean? You release that anxiety. It's the transition from you to the page, or, whatever.
Yeah. It's also the first step in you making a connection with your audience, even if it's just one listener who resonates with that song. I think that act of getting it down, yes, it's saved your life, but it's also, it's a really moving thing, actually. It's basically saying, I'm planning to connect. I'm starting to create a song in this moment. As desperate as I feel, there's something in me that realizes there's someone on the other side.
Yeah. And there's been lovely reactions to it. Like, I remember there was another song from Full in Time, was Caving In. Caving In and Survive. People have come up and said, I've been there. I've been there, and I play that song to remind myself that, I've been through that of a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's good when you hear that, and it makes you breathe a bit easier, because sometimes you think, should I have released something so personal? You know what I mean? Like, there is a little bit of taboo around it, and it's starting to diminish, but it's still unfortunately a thing. And I think the more we bottle it up,
Mhm.
you know, the more pain there is in the world. It's better to just like release it.
Yeah. And tell me again that the work you do is not essential, really. When people come up and say things like
Yeah.
that, you know, they've found their experiences, and then, yeah, it is a reminder of how important this work is that you do, that other artists do, because it is giving other people the opportunity to not just see themselves in lyrics, but to form a connection back with you.
Yeah, actually, now that you say that, like I remember going through my teenage years and listening to songs, and you know, because I got teased a little bit in high school, and like you hear lyrics of songs back then, and it got you through high school. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, I agree with that. Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Essential work. I said it is essential work.
Essential work.
Yeah.
We don't quite physically save lives, but we do. Yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
I guess we do. If it's a, yeah, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think so. And it is important to work with someone you like and respect, like Shane Nicholson. And as I said, you recorded the last album with him. You know, you plan to record with him a little sooner than you have, but the pandemic got in the way. But the pandemic also, it sounds like, provided you with the opportunity to write more than you had already. So
yeah.
I'm wondering how, if you know how many songs you wrote during that time before you had the chance to go back to the studio with him, or and if they are all on the album, the new album or forthcoming album, or if there are some that you've kept in reserve.
No, they're not all on the album. Like I finished the songs that went on the album,
Right.
but they were the favorite ones of the ones I wrote, just if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
There are a lot of unfinished songs in that period because I had really nothing else to do. Until things opened up, and then, you know, I could find another job or whatever. But I I don't know. It'd probably be, oh, well, this album has 11, so I'd say it was in the 20s, I reckon, of
Yeah.
at least finished or unfinished songs, just something, you know, sitting there.
Mhm.
But if the pandemic hadn't have happened, it would have been a very different album.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know, those songs that I didn't finish would have been finished. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, look, it's fantastic to have 11 to put on the album, and I'm sure Shane enjoyed working with you again. And he is a fantastic producer. So,
Yeah.
and it's, I can never really, he doesn't have a distinctive sound as a producer, but his albums are all excellent. And it's the same with Drive Me Sane. And I'm looking forward to hearing the new one at whatever point it's ready to be released. Now, as a child, I read you wanted to sing on stage because your father did that. So I'm
Yes.
wondering, you know, how big a part of your life his musical life was, and what all of that involved.
Well, my introduction to country music was through him. So he used to do gigs when I was a kid. He would, you know, jam in the living room, and I'd sing along with him. And there's recordings of me singing before I could talk. So I actually, my first song I ever wrote was called "Idea, Idea, Idea Snip." Uh, idea, idea, idea snip. So apparently I sang from an early age. Four was my first performance on stage, and then I started doing gigs with him from 8 to 12.
Oh, okay.
So that was good. That kind of got me pocket money,
Mhm.
and got me, you know, my dog, my little fox terrier, and a couple of bikes and stage clothes, and pretty much my child. No, I shouldn't say that. A lot of things. It got me. It helped my parents out, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a great way of kind of earning money and having fun. And
Mm.
it's funny how what you do in your childhood ends up being your job later on in life. So
Yeah.
that was my apprenticeship, I guess.
Did you ever feel nervous when you were a kid playing, or it just
I
was like
was
fun?
fearless. I
Right.
was fearless, and I wish I was fearless like that now. Unfortunately, when I say 12, like when I reached my teenage years, I was very self-conscious and I just didn't want to sing at all. I didn't sing again until I did Road to Tamworth when I was 17, but that was like a, you know, flash in the pan. And then I stopped. And then 23, I actually decided to sing again. So it was, yeah, it was a big hiatus there. Yeah. So when I was in my teenage years, I didn't want to sing at all. I could see that broke Dad's heart.
I was about to say, he must have wondered what happened. He had you for a few years and then gone.
Yeah. I was, yeah, it was, I used to get teased a lot. So I just didn't want to kind of put the focus on me. So I just kind of turned into a bit of an introvert. And then I didn't realize how much I loved music until I started writing again. And that was probably when I was about 16, 17, which was when the Road to Tamworth thing happened, which was 17. So I was writing again. And then I went down south to Byron to do audio engineering, which is audio production, which is like recording people, you know. And so I was around a whole lot of different cultures and learning different styles. And I was introduced to Fleetwood Mac, and I was like, you know, Stevie Nicks' voice was amazing. I was like, oh my God. And yeah, it was a great experience. And I came back, and yeah, a couple of years later, I put in an entrance for the Charters Towers Country Music Festival. And then I just went from there because I didn't know what else to do. I was a teacher, and I was a kindy teacher, and I was still studying because that's how desperate they were for teachers. And I realized I wasn't really cut out for it. It wasn't for me. The kids were great, but it was just, yeah, it was too, like, I wasn't well suited for it, for sure. And didn't know what else to do. So just got my dad's equipment and just handed out flyers anywhere I could, like within a 300-kilometer radius of Townsville. And yeah, it's been my full-time job for 8 years.
That's amazing. Well, particularly to reconnect with it like that, and having had so long away from it, it seems like you just threw yourself back into the fire, so to speak.
Yeah, and it was a bit because I wasn't used to the fact that you're on stage, you're kind of on a pedestal, I guess, and people are looking at you, and you're the focus again. That was very startling. That was hard at first. Once I kind of was able to get over that, you know when to turn on your light and turn off your light. That was an interesting thing, and that was a good thing that Limbo Tales taught us. I'm still like, turn on your light. You know, just as, you know, your alter ego or whatever. That was hard. Once I got over that, it wasn't so bad. But you know, when people, like at festivals, I still get very nervous. So it's just, you know, something that I just got to get used to, I guess.
Well, or not. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to be nervous. I often think it's and I say it's a sign that you care about the outcome, that you want the audience to have a great experience. It's just that, I suppose, changing the interpretation of it from being this is bad to, oh, it's a sign that I care.
Yeah.
Because we can have that conditioning where we think, oh, if I'm nervous, then it must be a bad thing I'm about to experience I don't want to do. But in the body, it can feel the same as excitement sometimes.
Yeah, well, nervousness can be handy because it helps me breathe. I don't know why. I can breathe better when I'm nervous. And I guess that's adrenaline as well. So adrenaline and excitement are very similar things. They feel very similar. They seem to happen at the same time. So for me anyway. So yeah, it's easier to breathe and actually do those big notes sometimes that you wouldn't really do in a small room, that, you know, they're just talking to each other. You wouldn't really dare to do that. But when you're nervous, suddenly you can channel it into your breathing, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier to sing.
It's a fascinating insight, Tammy. But like, I think being on a festival stage must be like walking a tightrope. You know, you are really out there on the wire, and taking your life in your hands, so to speak. And it would feel amazing when you pull it off.
Yeah, it's lovely when, yeah, especially when you hit the notes that you wanted to hit. Yeah, they're great. And you yodel when you're supposed to yodel, and you don't yodel when you're not, you know. There's been times where I've yodeled where I wasn't supposed to yodel. Nervousness, you know, comes and goes, but yeah, it, as long as I can channel it, it's not so bad. Yeah.
Well, you've channeled all sorts of energy into your recorded songs, and they are fantastic. You mentioned playing Tropic Fiesta Festival. I believe you have some other festivals coming up later in the
Yeah.
year. Gympie, for example.
Oh, I've got not Gympie, I've got no, Birdsville races, well, the Birdsville pub. So they've got a whole bunch of artists playing at the pub during the race meet. I've got the Early Beach Music Festival that they just announced the first lot of artists, I think yesterday. So that's in November. And I've got I've got a William Creek. I'm going through South Australia to William Creek, which is apparently they have a big shindig during the AFL Grand Final, and all these artists come, and it becomes this concert wrapped around the AFL Grand Final, which is different. So yeah, that will be very interesting. And Rolling Stone, the Festival of Cool, that's in November as well. So there's a lot of things in Queensland. Yeah, for sure. And if you're coming up to Townsville, most likely playing somewhere here. Right. Just go to tammymoxon.com. It's got all my gigs, the homepage.
Well, Tammy, it's been so great to talk to you, and I could keep talking and asking you lots of questions, but I'll save it for when your next single or the album comes out and we can chat then. In the meantime, Fighting Chance is a great song. I do recommend people go and check out your back catalogue.
Thank you.
And yeah, hope to talk to you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Bye.